My dad was the one who did communion a moment ago, and he actually referenced a book called Please, Sorry, Thanks by Mark Batterson. And it's funny that he did that because we didn't collaborate on this, and it was actually that book that inspired some of these messages that I'm gonna share with you. So I would encourage you, if you're looking for a good read, I don't get any cut of the book, so just being clear about that. There is no sponsoring or anything like that. It's just a good book, and talking about those three words and those three concepts. And it inspired some of the things I'm gonna share with you. But he said something in the introduction of that book that I'm gonna use as the title for this message. And the sentence, the phrase was, words create worlds. Words create worlds. If you think about the book of John, chapter 1, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Speaking of Jesus, but it refers to him as the Word. In Hebrews 11, it tells us that by faith we know that God spoke the world into existence, that it was by the Word of God that the world was created. And of course, we know we're made in the image of God, and we know that our words matter, that words create worlds. They create a world inside of our own heads. They create a world in the people around us. The things you say, the way you say them, absolutely affects the world around you. And I want us to do some thinking about this, and the even point, I'll just come right out and tell you my intention with this message, is that we, as the body of Christ, we as a community of believers, as sons and daughters of God, as followers of Jesus, that we would have a community, a culture within a culture, a community within the overall world. I'm not just talking about the city limits. I'm not just talking about the country. I'm talking about our community of people, that we would relate to one another, that we would communicate with each other at a level that's higher than the status quo, that we would function better than the world around us. In John 13, 34, 35, Jesus says, this command I give to you, love one another. He says it's a new command. And he says, by this, all people will know that you're my disciples, that you love one another. Well, what does that mean? Love one another. And how would we do that? So much of that has to do with how we communicate, how we relate to one another. So I'm gonna kind of dig deep in this concept, but I think it's important that we don't reflect necessarily, we don't reflect the culture around us, that we actually lead the culture around us, and that in a church with a lot of people that are different, come from different places, different cultures, different backgrounds, different generations, different ways of looking at the world, that we rise above the current ways of communicating, and we're able to do this in a whole different way. So that's what I'm hoping this will do. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you three sets of three, and this is going to, if I do this right, and hopefully I do it well, that you have something that this sermon, I'm just gonna start it, and then you keep it going in your car, you keep it going on date night, you keep it going in your home, in your conversations, in your connect groups, okay? But I wanna give you a grid of common understanding that we can work off of, all right? I've referenced this before. If you've been around, you may remember me saying it. Talking about integrity. Integrity is what I think, what I say, and what I do are all aligned. Okay, so if I think one thing, but I say and do something else, I'm not integrated. I'm not a person of integrity, and that's often how we lose trust. If it's like math, okay, it's pretty simple. Like, if I think I owe you, I know I owe you $100, but I say I only owe you 50, and then I only give you 50, right? Not integral. We're gonna talk about words, right? Words create worlds, but I wanna start with thinking. When I say thinking, it's like what's going on up here and what's going on inside. So here's another set of three. You have your head, you have your heart, and you have your gut. I've talked about this brain science before. There's a book called M-Braining. There's a book called Head, Heart, Guts. Basically, it talks about how your literal brain, your literal heart, and your literal stomach have clusters of neurons. You have about 100 billion neurons in your brain. You have about 40,000 neurons in your actual heart, and you have about 100 million in your stomach. And so it's a network of intelligence that when you're processing through information or decision-making situations, these three things are going. What's my head? My head is my intellect. It's my logic. There's my heart. My heart is my feelings. It's my values. It's my passions. My gut is a sense. It's a sense of a situation. I got a gut feeling. I sense I'm supposed to do this and that. And these are the areas, when we're communicating with God, things going on inside, God will speak to our head. He'll speak to our hearts, and he'll speak to our guts. And of course, the best decisions we make in life is when these things are aligned. Often if I'm conflicted about a decision, it might be the issues, the numbers don't add up, or maybe it's just something doesn't feel right in my heart, I don't feel connected to it, or there's a sense in my gut this is right or wrong. So when we talk about thinking, saying, and doing, let's just stick with this for a second. I got one more group of three, but let's pause here. And let's think about, if I think thinking is more than just math, the $100 and the $50, it's what's going on in my heart. It's my feelings. My feelings affect what's going on in my head, how I feel about a situation. And often, it's like my thinking, saying, and doing. Have you ever been in a place where you felt something? If you were being emotionally honest, you felt a certain kind of way, but sometimes when my heart is out of whack, or my heart is broken, or I'm frustrated, or whatever, I'm dealing with a lot of emotions and feelings, if that becomes the thing I'm always saying and talking about, if I'm not careful, my feelings lead the way. And then that's all that's coming out of my mouth is how I feel. And sometimes I can get stuck in a feeling. And maturity over time is to realize that my heart and my gut are part of what's going on inside my feelings in my head. I've got to work my way through those so I can get clear-headed enough. Otherwise, my emotions and my feelings just dominate my reality, and then that's what I say, and I get stuck right there. I'll tell you a quick story. We were hiring at one point. We had a guy that applied for a job at the church, and he was from another state, and he had worked in church before, and he was applying for a job that reported directly to me. I'm not in all of our interviews and all that kind of thing, but this one I was going to be in because this was going to be a direct report to me. So I get his resume. Resume was really beautiful and whatever. I'm reading it, and so then I decide I'm going to go look him up on social media, because social media doesn't tell you everything, but it does tell you something. I'm curious, over the last several years, what were you doing before you applied for a job at one church? So I go back, and I'm looking at his posts, and I go back to like 2017, and he's got a post, and he's up shooting his face on a Sunday morning, and his eyes are super heavy, and he looks like he's about to fall asleep, and he posts the caption, "Sleepy Sunday." Sleepy Sunday. Thinking, that's odd, because Sunday's when we have church. And so I'd be putting this guy in charge of people. And words create worlds. And so I screenshotted it. And then he came in for the interview. And he's telling me about how great he is. And then I said, hey, I was looking at your social in 2017. In October, you had a sleepy Sunday. Tell me about that. See, y'all want me to be this kind, gentle, sweet pastor, right? Well, we got to run an organization, and I need you to be self-controlled enough to not have a sleepy Sunday just because you're tired. So I show the picture. I said, tell me about Sleepy Sunday. He's like, oh, yeah. Sleepy Sunday. Oh yeah. That day I was tired. I was just being honest about my feelings. It's like, man, that's a big problem, man, because words create worlds, and yawns are contagious. You ever been around somebody who's yawning, talk about how tired they are? You're like, dang, I am kind of tired. Words create worlds. Maturity is your ability to work through your feeling, and self-control gets you to a place where, it's not lacking integrity to work my way to a place where I don't just allow myself for my attitude to cascade into just Sleepy Sunday. So I told them, I was like, my man, I don't know if you're gonna want this job, because around here, we never have a Sleepy Sunday, ever. I've never had a Sleepy Sunday, ever, not one. Have I ever been sleepy on a Sunday? Oh, you better believe I've been sleepy on a Sunday, but I've never had a Sleepy Sunday. Because I know what to do about that. I get a double shot of caffeine, and then I go to late 90s, early 2000s, Fred Hammond. I crank it up in the car. I sing myself happy. By the time I get to church, I'm locked and loaded. There is no sleepy Sunday. I'm not gonna come, I'm kind of sleepy today. No, absolutely not. Now, does that mean I lack integrity? No, because my heart feels a certain way. My head, I'm gonna work my way to a place, right? I'm gonna speak these things I'm gonna speak it into reality. And often the chicken and egg is that my attitude and my feelings are gonna follow what comes out of my mouth. I'm gonna speak about a preferred future. Now I know there's some of this stuff is a little weird because people are into all the manifestation. I'm manifesting, The Secret, whatever, and it's like I'm gonna imagine my dream car. I'm gonna imagine my dream car and I'm gonna declare my dream car. And I'm gonna just declare it, and one day the universe is gonna drive it into my parking lot for me. All right, that's not what I'm talking about here, okay? We're not talking about that. We're also not just talking about just saying stuff, right? It's like The Office. Remember you can admit it. You can admit you watch Office, it's fine. Remember when Michael declares bankruptcy? Right, he realized all the advantages of bankruptcy. He's like, I declare bankruptcy. And Oscar's like, you can't just declare bankruptcy. You can't just say bankruptcy. He goes, I didn't just say it, I declared it. So this isn't about just manifesting or something weird. It's about the relationship between what I think, what's going on in my heart, what's going on in my head, working my way through these things so that the things I'm saying, my language, words matter. Words create worlds. They create worlds in my mind. They create worlds in my relationships. And words are valuable to define reality, but to also define future reality, okay? It's good to define reality with your words. Here's the reality of where we are. So I'm not talking about, hear me, I gotta kind of talk about what I'm not talking about so you know what I am talking about. I'm not talking about toxic positivity where we stick our head in the sand about conflicts. I'm not saying that we kumbaya, everything's great, when there's stuff's burning around us. We can smell smoke, and we're like, no, everything's good. At some point, we have to use our words to define reality. We have to define reality, but what happens is our words also define a future reality. This is where I am, but this is where I'm going. I want to encourage you in these areas where you can step back and look at your heart health. You can look at where you're at in terms of your feelings, your emotions. If you do have a broken heart, if you do find yourself highly frustrated, we live in this day and age now, this world, the last few years were a time warp. It was a time warp. There was a lot of exhaustion. There was a lot of confusion. There's so much change happening at the same time. We're trying to adapt to the information age. We're trying to adapt to a world of communication where people use symbols and emojis to communicate stuff, right? You ever get an emoji, you're like, what are you even, like, are you being sarcastic? Are you blowing me off? Did you really mean that? What tears, which, I can't remember which crying emoji is it. Are you sad? Are you laughing, laughing so hard you're crying? We live in a world where people are communicating in a way that's kind of confusing sometimes. And in the middle of that world, trying to keep our head above water, trying to keep our hearts right, you've got to work through your feelings. The Bible says, from the abundance of the heart, Jesus says this in the book of Luke, chapter 6. From the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. From the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So think about that. Think of the chicken and egg of my heart, my feelings, and my mouth. It could be that the chicken and egg could be that my heart is in one condition that then causes the something to come out of my mouth, or what's coming out of my mouth is setting the tone and helping to shape my attitude and my heart. But we got to work through these things. Often you'll find, especially if you're in a place where you say, I'm kind of conflicted about what I think because I feel a certain way and I'm starting to come to conclusions about certain things, to really look and take seriously going through the process of working through your feelings, your emotions, so that you can become clear-headed. I can tell you, as in my marriage, my relationship with Shaylin, over the years, right, my mouth personally is a pressure release valve. My mouth, I'm a verbal human being and I'm an emotional human being. And so with my mouth, right, one of my love languages, you guys know love languages, right? Quality time, gifts, okay, physical touch, okay, you have acts of service. Well, there's words of affirmation. And so for me, that's part of my love language. So words create worlds. Words for me are how I give love. But when I'm upset, angry, and frustrated, and my heart's broken and I'm wounded, words are how I want to inflict pain. Or withhold my words because you don't even deserve my words. So I'm going dead silent. I'm going radio silent. I'm not saying anything to you because I don't want anything to come out of my mouth to be interpreted as love. You can judge me if you want. I'm just telling you my journey. So what happens? My heart's out of whack, which means my head often is out of whack because I'm coming to conclusions, I'm being done dirty here. Shaylin's treating me wrong. I can't believe, why would she do, how come she's like that? Why does she wake up every morning, take mean pills and try to make my life worse? This just is unjust, it's unfair, and so what have I done in my upset, the fact that my heart is hurting, my thoughts are jumbled, and often I draw conclusions, and what I've had to learn is I don't just go in and unload on her because I'm confused and my feelings are overtaking, my heart's overtaking my head. I've got to find healthy, whether it's a counselor, whether it's a wise mentor, the healthy environment for me to be able to work through those feelings. Because often, as I'm able to let those things out, once they come out, I go, that's not even true, actually. That's not even true. She doesn't take mean pills. She wakes up wanting to make my life better. It's not this. We're miscommunicating. All of a sudden, I can start seeing through her lens. But what I don't want to do is just, say whatever is going on in my mind and inflict pain on her in my confusion. So throughout your life, you have a heart, no matter how emotionally composed you are, or you may not be as verbal or emotional as I am, but yet you're gonna have those feelings, and you gotta be able to work those through in a way so that your thinking can be clear, and then what you say, you're communicating in an appropriate way. So now let's go to saying. Okay, this is a very pragmatic breakdown of human communication. You have three things. You have what's called locution, illocution, and perlocution. Locution is just words and what they mean. Words have definitions. Illocution is what I mean by the words. What is the intent of the speaker? And then perlocution is how it's received. The greatest impact of words create worlds. The most powerfully impacted words are powerful words with powerful intent that are received at full impact. Let's use an example. Next week, I'm gonna talk about apologies and forgiveness, apologizing. Locution, I'm sorry. I'm sorry means something. I'm sorry means I feel remorse about a decision. I'm sorry means I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I hadn't said that. Will you forgive me? It's feeling remorse. That's locution. Illocution is what's my intent. So I could say a word that means something, but I could mean something different. Like, I said I'm sorry. I said I'm sorry. What does that mean? It means get out of my face. That means, why do you keep bringing it up? I want you to drop it. Sorry. Locution means I'm experiencing remorse. But illocution, if I go, sorry, means it doesn't mean I feel remorse. It means, why are you overreacting? That's what it means. Perlocution is my perception of what you mean by that word, not just what the word said. So you see in communities, I say communities, I don't just mean cities, I mean families, extended families, neighbors, neighborhoods, jobs, workplaces, and churches often function at a low level because of this. We use words. What's the intent behind the word? By the way, as the receiver, what is my desire about your intent? Do I want to believe the best about you? How much grace am I willing to give you behind your intent as you're working to become a better human being? Am I willing to receive it? My first boss that I worked for right out of college, super great guy. And I remember going to him one time, I was super upset about something somebody said to me. And I was totally fixated on locution. I was fixated on the words they picked. And I couldn't let go of it. And I went in and I was about 22 years old. And I was just kind of going on. And he said, hey, Greg, listen, man, if you're going to be like the best person you can be, and you want to be a good leader, and you want to be a good husband, and you want to be a good father, and you want to be a good son, and you want to be a good citizen, you're going to have to go beyond locution. He didn't use this language, but you get the idea. You're going to have to go beyond their words and not just fixate on, but you said this word, and you're going to have to listen to their heart. You're going to have to listen to what they were trying to say. You're going to have to see who they're trying to become, what they're grappling for, becoming a better listener, because not everybody picks the best words, and some people are a work in progress. But I believe, what I believe about our community is you're here because you're trying to grow closer to God. You want to be a better person. You're trying to figure out what that means. And how do I do better? So if we're going to be a community of grace, we have to believe the best about one another, give grace to one another in this process as we work our way through it. And with this, we pick, our words matter. Our words create worlds. They create them in our own heads. They create them in our own environment. And I believe as we as a church are growing in number, we're expanding our facility, we're facilitating community, we need to be intentional and we need to be committed and vigilant to growing as a healthy community. One of the beauties of this church is the diversity of our church. Cultural, generational, there's the stuff you can see, but there's a whole lot more you can't see. There are some that are very creative. There are some that are engineers. There are some that are designers. There are some that are show their emotions, some that aren't. We have introvert, extrovert, all of this coming together. And we see what it looks like in the world. We need to function at an even higher level. So here's what I want you to do. Number one, I hope you'll take this and I hope you'll think about the application. Is there anywhere you're thinking, saying, and doing are out of alignment? Maybe there's in here, you've been saying what you feel and what you think because you're trying to grapple the clarity when your feelings are out of whack, when your heart's broken, when you're frustrated, when you're feeling something you don't want to feel. I feel weak, I feel hopeless, I feel whatever you feel. And a lot of that's coming out of your mouth. Maybe you're getting stuck in your feelings because I just keep saying this. I'm going to give you something to get out of that. But maybe that's where you're at, or maybe it's here. And then we're going to talk more about this next week, about conversation and how we can get better at this. But I want you to think about words serving two purposes. Serving two purposes. One, they can define reality. But if I don't use it for the second purpose, which is to define a new future reality, I'll stay stuck in my current reality. So I'm going to give you a sentence for you to pray about, talk with your friends about, talk with your family about, and fill in the blank. All right, here it is. Currently, I am blank, but I will blank. Currently, I am. There may be something about your current reality in your feelings, in your head, in your thinking, and because you're stopping there, currently I am, you're getting stuck in that, you need to add the future. Where am I going? So I wrote a few down. Currently, I am in a season of grief, but I will heal. Currently, I am in bondage to something, but I will do whatever it takes to find freedom. Currently, I am not able to trust people, but I will dig deep and refuse to block everyone out. Currently, I am not able to be trusted, but I will develop character and become a person of consistency and integrity. Currently, I am confused about what's going on in my head, but I will figure out what's going on. Currently, I am holding bitterness towards somebody, but I will find a way to forgive and find peace. Currently, we have a broken marriage, but we will do whatever it takes to get healthy. So use your words to define reality. Use your words to define a future reality. We talk about words creating worlds, and you think about positive thinking, and sometimes positive words lead to positive feelings, lead to positive outcomes. But have you ever been in a position where it's like every time you start talking positive, it's like bad stuff happens? So I've shared with you guys a little bit about our family. You know, we have 3 kids, and our 2 boys are on the spectrum. Our middle son, our older son, he's 12 now. His name's Hudson, and Hudson, he's more volatile than Miles, so he'll have higher highs, lower lows. Miles goes to a school with like neurotypical kids. He's in this sort of integrated classroom. Hudson has a special school that he goes to, and he'd melt down, and he has more sensory issues, and he's got all this stuff. And so it's been a real challenge. Like, it's been a totally different playbook. And I've tried to be generous with the story. Not that I want to make every Sunday about our family or whatever, but I try to think about what God's teaching me, what God's showing me. And it's not about autism, it's about that thing. And I want to share it with you. And hopefully, it's just been wild to see the way God's used that in people who don't have the same situation we do, but it's useful. And so Shayla and I started to notice a correlation. Like, every time I would share a story about a victory, you know, with Hudson, it was like the next week it would be a regression, you know. I remember doing this message on, like, I was always punishing him, trying to punish him out of bad behavior. And I'm reading 1 John, and it's like, you know, if you're basically afraid of God, fear of consequences, you've not yet had a view of his perfect love. So I just decided to totally switch my plan. And I would go to Hudson, and I'm just like, Hudson, you are good. You are a good boy with a good heart. Repeat after me. You're a good boy with a good heart. To this day, if you walk up and say, hey, Hudson, you're a good boy with what? He'll go, good heart. Like, I made him repeat it. And then he started being good, you know? And so I came to the church, you know, to here with you guys. I'm like, guys, this Bible stuff works, you know? It, like, totally worked. And so, like, Hudson, you know, we broke through, you know? And then, like, 2 days later, you know, it's just like this huge regression. And he goes backwards, and Shaylin's like, hey, man, maybe you shouldn't declare victory anymore, you know? Maybe not, you know? It's like every time, some of you know what I'm talking about. It's like every time I say, oh, it's going so good, and then it's like, boom. Oh, I'm starting to heal, boom. Oh, our marriage is better than it's ever been, huge fight. And so you're like, man, what do I even do with words? Because they create worlds. And sometimes positive words lead to positive feelings, lead to positive outcomes. And sometimes it feels like my words, you know, don't match my reality, or what do I do? And I think what I just gave you is helpful is this. I can use my words to define reality. We don't do anybody any good by sticking our head in the sand. We do define where we are, but we make a choice to say, I will not stay here. And so Shayla and I have had to come to that place where in our marriage with our son, I'd just be frank with you to tell you sometimes it has felt hopeless. That's my feeling. That's what my heart feels. I'm tired of throwing spaghetti against the wall. One piece sticks and then it falls down. I'm tired of that. I feel like it just always goes backwards. I've had the same type of attack in my mind and the feelings around that. And so we've had to go, look, this is where we are, but this is where we're going. Right now, currently, we're stuck in this problem, but we will get to a better place. I don't know exactly what it's gonna look like. I know it's gonna be better than this. We're gonna keep trying stuff. We're gonna keep pulling levers. We're gonna keep being patient. We're gonna keep working together. We're gonna keep fighting the problem, not the person. We're gonna keep doing the right thing, and we're gonna keep our attitude right, and we're gonna encourage each other, and we're gonna speak positively, and we're gonna speak about where we're going, because our words create a world that our son is a part of, that our marriage is a part of, that helps me in the moments where I go, it's just, this other shoe always drops. No, I'm not going to think like that. I'm not going to get stuck in that. People that live in their feelings and only articulate their current reality get stuck in that reality. We're going to a better place. We're going to a different place. Currently I am, but I will. I end with this. John 13, 34, 35. I referenced it before, but I want to come back to it. Jesus says, now I'm giving you a new commandment. Love each other. Just as I have loved you, you should love each other. For your love for one another will prove to the world you are my disciples. Your greatest witness, your greatest testimony, hear me. There's a time to stand up for truth. Speak out with what you believe in. Take your stand. Do your thing, that's fine. But what Jesus says is, by this, you'll have your greatest witness. Will be the way you love one another. The way you love one another. What does that even mean? Does it mean we never have conflict? Absolutely not. Does it mean that we always have harmony? Absolutely not. Does it mean that we all, in our unity, we all see everything the same way? Of course it doesn't. By this, all men will know you're my disciples. You love one another. What does it look like? It means that our thinking, our saying, and our doing, how we think about one another, what we say to one another, and how we treat one another is in love. Which means sometimes the things we talk about, we debate about, we wrestle with, we share our perspectives. Somebody's gonna screw up locution and even maybe even illocution in a moment because their heart is hurting, because maybe their perspective is limited. They're still learning. But if we have a community where we go, look, Jesus is at the center. We want to be a part of something healthy where we're growing together. We will give grace when people don't pick the right words. We'll give some grace as people are trying to figure out. They're working through their motive, their intention, and we're going to grow together. How do we become that community that's a witness, a great testimony of being disciples of Jesus? That we love one another, that we think, we speak, and we treat one another with love and grace.